This is the passage we read last Sunday to begin this 2-week series, and I'm going to read it again. Just remember that it's a place where Jesus had been ministering to the 12 disciples for all these years, all these months, and then he had modeled to them what it meant. He had instructed them what it meant to live as a person living in God's kingdom, and then he sent the 12 out, and then he sent 72 out to be his witnesses throughout the area. And this is what it says. It says, "The Lord now chose 72 other disciples and sent them ahead in pairs to all the towns and places where he planned to visit. These were his instructions to them. The harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord of the harvest, who is in charge of the harvest, and ask him to send more workers into his fields. Now go, and remember that I'm sending you out as lambs among wolves." Now, if you read a little bit later in Luke chapter 10, what happens is they come back. And their first words are, "Jesus, what you said works. We went out, we told people, we talked to them, and diseases were healed, and amazing things happened." And they were so excited about being able to take what God had told them and go and live it out. If you recall, if you were with us last week, that was our theme. The theme was go. Go. And we mentioned that we had lots of people from the congregation actually who were literally gone to other countries in last week. But we said that's part of our job too, though, that every day is go day. Every week is go week for us, because all of us are called to be witnesses. And so today we have the real privilege for the message today. We're going to hear the disciples who have been out of country come back, and they're going to talk about what Jesus is doing in other places. And we're really excited. And first I'm going to call on Sharon Fox and Patty Robinson to come up, and they're going to speak to us today. They win the prize for coming the longest distance from last Sunday. That's for sure. 15 hours, 15, 16, 17 hours on one flight, and I think, 30 some hours in total in transit. So
who's counting?
No chair for her, just there we go. Thanks. And we're gonna pray for you right now, that God's going to just use you this morning. I know He is going to.
Good morning. It's actually a little surreal to understand that last Sunday morning in worship, I was standing. You were right to give me a Kleenex. I was standing in our church in Kasolo, Uganda. And here I am now standing in front of you. The first thing that I said to them was greetings from Light of the Desert Lutheran Church and from Pastor Paul. I apologize. And their response was boisterous and celebrating and joyful and hands clapping and a lot of Now, I bring to you, Pastor Paul and congregation of Light of the Desert, greetings from our church in Kasolo. Pretty good. We may have to bring them there to teach us, but it was such a privilege to represent this congregation over in Uganda, in many places, but especially at our church, to watch them, to see their joy. Pastor Paul, they sent a message specifically to you. They are missing you very much. And I assured them that it was they that were in your heart as well. it's hard to pick among all of the things that we did and that we saw, and I figured that soon Paul would just come up and take the microphone away from me. But a couple of things I wanted to mention that were kind of overall was first and foremost, the land. Uganda is a beautiful land. It's green. There's just fields of corn growing. There's banana trees. There's vegetables growing. It's just a gorgeous land to be in. But even more beautiful and wonderful than the land itself were the people. The people were so friendly, and even just driving down the street, and you would see these very serious, very stern faces that, might make you a little nervous sometimes, but all you had to do was smile, and these huge, great, big grins would be all over their faces, and they'd be waving. And so it was just a very wonderful, welcoming place. We had the privilege of seeing a lot of the impact that Hope for Kids has done over in Uganda. What a privilege for us as a congregation to be in partnership with them. Wells dedicated, hospitals visited, and certainly what you all know is near and dear to my heart, because I keep drumming it into you all, is the children that we have adopted through the church. We went several places, and I think I'm speaking like a proud mama, but many people commented that when we were at Kasolo, our kids were very just polite and well-behaved, and would have made you all proud. They all send their love to you, and especially to those of you who have had the privilege to sponsor them. Speaking of that, the good news is, not exclusive to us, but into the program while we were there, we were privileged to enter 10 more children into the program from Kasolo. Now, these are not, you don't have to adopt them, but they will be in the program, and that's certainly exciting for our village. If you want to, just talk to me. So it was a privilege to be there. I know that Sharon is going to share some other things about the trip. But thank you for those of you who in prayer and monetarily have supported us in going. And I just encourage all of you, if you get an opportunity next year, make it your year to visit Uganda.
My roomie. It was so wonderful traveling with Patty. This was my journal on the way, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just took some parts of it for my talk today. It's great to be back, and I want to thank you for all your prayers while we were gone. We really felt them, for your texts, for your messages on Facebook, which I don't have, but luckily once in a while we got it in the hotel through Patty's phone, so it was wonderful. By the way, that picture, I'm standing with Peggy McCarver's sponsored son, Levis, and his mother, and they rode for 2 hours on a boda. That's a little small motorcycle that I think you might have seen the photo with the couch on the back. That's a boda. It's named that way because it means it goes from border to border. Boda. So anyway, they rode 2 hours to get there and planned on riding 2 hours to get back. Luckily, they got a little bit of a ride because there was a rainstorm at the end of our program meeting these sponsored children. But both the boys, and I've forgotten your son's name here, Derek, were thrilled with the soccer ball and had the greatest time, and they were just the nicest kids. We had such a nice afternoon with them. The last time I spoke in front of a congregation, it was in a little peach-colored church where the people were rocking out. They were so thrilled for us to be there. And it was like the walls were expanding and the roof was bouncing. It was just a service like I'd never been part of before. The church is just so beautiful and simple on the inside. I just marveled at it, and it was packed with people. And children were up front dancing to the bongo drum beat and the keyboards. And they've got joints where I don't have joints anymore. So I was trying to picture, if we could join the line out there, but no, that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, they have so much joy. It occurred to me that they wear their joy on the inside and the outside. They wear their faith on the inside and the outside. Everywhere we went we did do 2 different church services, and everywhere we met other people that Hope for Kids had sponsored, I got that same sensation. I could work harder at letting my faith spill out more. Where's my Kleenex here? I got it. And they were a wonderful example of that. And that alone made the trip worthwhile to me. Of course, I went to Africa to serve the mission of Hope for Kids, also the mission of this church to serve and help others. But I really feel, and I'm sure Patty agrees, that we got 10 times back in love and faith and support, and also support from Light of the Desert. So the other thing that was really neat was to see the other end of the spectrum of our giving, the church's giving. When the ladies make dresses here, we took 2 big bags full of dresses. We got to put those dresses on our sponsored girls and hold them for a photo. Everybody's going to get a photo if you've sponsored a child. We also did another Dress a Girl Day at Smile Africa. It's a place where children who are in desperate circumstances can come and get a meal. They can get medical help. They can even sleep there if they need to stay there for a while. So we were able to dress 200 girls that day, that afternoon, and that was amazing. They filed in 5 at a time into this little room, and we held the dresses up to get, what size fits, and popped it on, and they were just filled with joy when they saw their photos. It's great to take photos of the kids in Africa. They just congregate for a photo. A girl with a camera can have a really fun time in Uganda. So you just put it out there and boom, they just come to you. So that was really neat. The other thing that struck me is how Ugandans live in community. As Patty was saying, it's such a beautiful country. So as we're driving many hours on the bus to get to these rural areas, we watch, and we see that most of life is lived outside. It's not lived in their little clay, dark huts with grass roofs, although they're very picturesque. It's lived outside with their neighbors. The children are all together, fetching water together. The women are coming back from the fields. They've been breaking up clods with these huge tools, but they're all together. And I thought, how wonderful that it's not only at church that we get this feeling and sense of community, but they get it probably 90% of the time. It doesn't look like my neighborhood street on any given afternoon. You'd have to go knock on some doors to say hi to people most of the time. So that really struck me, and I thought, I can do better. I can do better at that. So in spite of owning very, very little, there's richer, I think, than I am in many, many ways. And it made an impact. The other thing that happened is I realized how just one person can make such a huge difference in a country like Uganda. We had a woman on our team, Cece, from the state of Virginia. She attends a large church out there, and she organized a walk for water with her church, and in that one walk, they raised enough money to drill a well for clean water, safe water, for a village in Uganda. So part of our trip was going to that village and celebrating, dedicating that well. What that well does is keeps the children of the village free from disease and all the things that water can bring if it's not safe water. So Cece, being one person, created an immense impact on the couple of thousand people that utilized their old kind of fetid pond that was just yellow, and their children were dying very young. Cece changed that all around, and she not only changed it around for the people in that village, but for their children and their children's children forever. So that was a huge celebration. That day there were 2 celebrations, and my first one was in the morning. Cece's was in the afternoon, but we all went to both of them, and we're riding along, bouncing along the bus on this red dirt road, and then in the distance there's green trees, and I mean it's very pretty. In the distance I see some like wiggling branches, and then we get closer and we see some little heads bouncing up and down, and then pretty soon we've got like 100 and I don't know how many, 1,000 children coming at the bus, running and cheering and singing. Behind them, all their mothers in their beautiful dresses, welcoming us to their well dedication. And it was my first experience of being welcomed and engulfed. Our bus was just engulfed with people so happy to see us. From that point on, I mean, we went through a wonderful celebration, and one amusing end to it was that the people of the village feel obligated to present a gift to us after we've given them the gift of clean water. God has given them the gift of clean water. He brought us there. But the villagers gave us a gift. It was a goat. And so, yeah. And so, Patty, could you bring the goat in? The goat was put on our bus because it's rude to refuse such a gift. It's a sacrifice. And so the goat, that was the morning, the goat went to the afternoon celebration as well, bus. And in the afternoon, Cece, who was, celebrated by the villagers, got another goat and a chicken. So the goat and the chicken also both got on the bus with us for the 3-hour ride home. Kind of a whole new meaning to the phrase, get your goat. I don't know. Anyway, that was fun. I've never traveled with a goat before. So I'm grateful this week for Thanksgiving. I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to be back home safe and sound. I'm thankful that God watched over us. And I'm thankful for the people of Uganda and Kasolo, for my little girl, Prasi, who I got to hold in my lap through the whole church service, and for health and strength to make the trip. We barely made it back, but we made it back. So I don't know, in the last few days I saw a saying on a t-shirt that I thought was an appropriate way to end this, because this is what I'm most thankful for. It said, I'm not perfect, but Jesus thinks I'm to die for. So, and that's what I'm thankful for. Sorry I took up too much time, Paul.
I want to share a little bit of scripture with you. My name is Jeff Grandpré. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
In the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, it says, O people, the Lord has told you what is good, and this is what he requires of you, to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 7, he says this, share your food with the hungry, give shelter to the homeless, give clothes to those who need them, and do not hide from relatives who need your help. Those are some great words. In the past few months, the sermon that I heard and spoke loudly to many of us was a sermon that called us to look in, look up, and then to go out. And last week, 14 people from our congregation went to Agua Prieta. And Agua Prieta is simply a little over 4 hours away, and life changes dramatically when you get there. People went down there. I went down there with an idea of building a home for a family, hadn't met this family. And after meeting the family, I had a plan in mind to work in November, work again in February, and then finish up a house sometime after that. And that was my plan, my schedule. That's the way it worked best for us. After going down there, I met a family, a young lady named Maria, her son Francisco, and their daughter Triena. And I heard their story. I met these people. It was real. She was there each day helping us with the house. And I felt the need to step this up a little bit. So the great news is we have an opportunity coming up in December to finish out the block portion of this home and then wrap it up in February. It gets cold down there. She's in a rental. And the place she lived just before this, the house we're building, there is no electricity and there is no running water there. And she is thrilled about this. So a couple of people that went down there are going to speak and share their experience. I'm going to call on Peggy O'Rourke, and I'm going to call on Pete Walker. I'd like you to listen to what they have to say.
Good morning. Jeff had mentioned about talking about what expectation we had going down there. And I thought about that, and I really didn't have an expectation. I've been to Mexico many times. I've seen the barrios. I kind of knew about what we were going to be doing and where we were going to be, so I wasn't nervous about it. If anybody knows me, they know I love an adventure, and if God's involved in asking me to go on that adventure, that's even icing on the cake. So I was excited about it, and like I said, not apprehensive at all. And I wasn't, I guess what I didn't know was how God was going to use me or have me work for him on this trip. Well, little did I know that the work actually began before we left. The weekend before was the weekend of the packing of the shoe boxes. And I have a girlfriend that, she's been to Light of the Desert, maybe 3 or 4 times. Tried to get her here more, but over maybe the last 2 years, she's been here a few times. And anyway, she called me on Saturday morning and asked me if I wanted to go hiking with her. And I said, no, I couldn't go hiking. I was going to be packing shoe boxes. And she said, what do you mean you're packing shoe boxes? And I explained to her about what we were doing. And she's like, wow, that's really cool. And I said, well, you're welcome to come. And she said, well, I can't come this morning because I've already committed to hiking with some friends. But she said, if you ever do anything like this again, please tell me about it and ask me. And I don't even know where this came from, but out of my mouth, I do know where it came from. It came from God, but he spoke through me. It wasn't anything I planned, but out of my mouth came the words, well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to Mexico next weekend, and if you have a passport, you're welcome to go along. Well, how many people would say sure? But she said, sure, I'd love to go along, and I have a passport. I was like flabbergasted, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, I have to find out with Jeff if that's even okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to invite other people to go. So before I got back to her and said it was okay, I texted Jeff and I said, is it too late for somebody else to go? And he said, absolutely not. So I got back to her and I said, yeah, it's fine for you to go along. So she went along, and it was a wonderful experience. It was very humbling. In the background of the picture, you can kind of see the the conditions that Maria was living in. Her home was made of basically pallets. It was a dirt floor, and that was where she was living, and then you kind of see where we're building the house in front of that. But my friend Barb just was it was awesome to experience the weekend through my friend's eyes as well. And we got back and we had dinner together on Monday night with some other friends, and it just warmed my heart. She couldn't stop talking through the whole meal about her experience in Mexico. And I knew that that was the right thing, and that was actually why I was called to go, was to get Barb down there and have her experience that. And she's now made 13 other friends at Light of the Desert, and she's not here today, but I'm hoping that, she feels more comfortable to come here. So that was my experience.
All right. This is a definite different perspective than I'm used to from back there. I don't like it. Not one bit. Basically, if you know me, I'm kind of cynical, sarcastic in nature. I never thought that I would do a mission trip. I was, I guess, the sender, not the goer. And Katie talked me into going on this trip, and the whole family went, and it was amazing. It exposed us to lifestyle down there that is very difficult. The people are very hardy that live down there. It's very poverty-stricken, but they are some of the happiest, friendliest people you've ever seen. We found out on our last day there that there are hundreds of families waiting for homes in that town, and that's just one small town. And basically, I took away from this mission trip that it was amazing giving back, building the house. We got 15 courses of bricks on out of the 20, and then it started raining and we couldn't work any further. But we got that far, and it was amazing leaving that behind, knowing that in a few months that she'll be able to move in there. I feel like we're taking more away from it than we left behind. And speaking of that, Maria pitched in with everybody else, and she worked on the outside of the walls, cleaning up the mortar, doing the little decorative bits that would make the place her home. I used to study architecture and worked for an architect in my summers, and this was definitely seeing a different side of the building process than I'd ever been exposed to before. Shoveling mortar for 8 hours was not a whole lot of fun, but again, I'd never laid brick. And I did it wrong. I put them upside down. I found out later, and who knew? Anyway, if you're thinking about going, you don't need any experience on building a home. You don't need any experience on laying brick. There are people there who will help you learn how to do it. All you need are leather gloves. All right. And just a little bit about the place we stayed. It was a very nice place as long as you were upwind of certain areas. The food was amazing. The people who came in and prepared our meals were friendly. They were outgoing. They were preparing special meals for people who wanted them done. And like I said, the food was just absolutely amazing. And then every night we would sing around the bonfire outside and just congregate and have fun. And just so you know, if you're one of those people who doesn't want to go on a mission trip because you have to work, you have to check email and text messages, you can get cell phone coverage at the lodge, which I did not tell my family until we were on the way out of the country. So, anyway, I can't wait to go back, and I hope that it works out that we can go back and finish this house for this family in need. Anyway, thank you.